You're 30 years old. It's a random Tuesday, no particular reason, and you open your banking app just to check the balance. And there it is, $6,600 in credit card debt. It's not the first time you've seen that number, but it's the first time you actually look at it and think, is this just going to follow me forever? Statistically, for most people, the answer is yes. Less than a quarter of Americans reach retirement completely debt-free. That's not an exaggeration. Carrying debt into your 60s and 70s isn't the exception, it's the pattern. So today, we're going to follow two versions of your life, starting from this exact moment. One where that debt just quietly stays in the background of your finances for years, and one where you decide at 30 that it ends before you turn 35. The difference between those two versions isn't just money. It's time, it's freedom, and honestly, it's who you become. You might be thinking, I've tried to pay this down before and it never seems to move. That's not a willpower problem, it's math. Most people only pay the minimum on their statement, and the minimum payment was never designed to get you out of debt quickly. It was designed to keep you paying interest for as long as legally possible. Let's actually run the numbers. $6,600 at the average credit card rate right now, which sits close to 24% a year. If you only pay the minimum, that balance takes roughly 22 years to disappear. Over that time, you'd pay back about $18,700 total, more than $12,000 of that in interest alone, on a debt that started at $6,600, 22 years. You started at 30. That puts you at 52, still paying off a credit card you opened in your 20s. Now here's the other version. At 30, you decide to stop paying the minimum and instead pay $260 a month. Every month, no exceptions. Same balance, same 24% rate. This time, the debt is gone in 3 years, not 22. 3. You're debt-free at 33. And the total cost in that version is about $9,300 compared to $18,700 in the other path. That's over $9,000 in interest you simply never hand over to the bank. Real wealth isn't built by earning more. It's built by stopping the leak first. Let's walk through the timeline of the person who chooses that second path. At 30, the decision gets made. There's nothing dramatic about it yet. It's just a number in a spreadsheet and $260 leaving the account automatically every month before anything else gets a chance to spend it. At 31, the balance has already dropped by more than half. It doesn't feel like much day to day, but the interest that used to eat most of each payment is now a much smaller slice of it. At 33, the balance hits zero, and this is the moment where most people exhale, relax, and quietly let their lifestyle creep up to fill the gap. A nicer dinner here, a slightly nicer car there, a little less discipline in the budget. Here's the turn in the story. The person who actually builds wealth does the opposite. They keep transferring that same $260 every month, except now it's not going toward debt. It's going into an investment account. At 33, that money changes jobs. It stops being a payment you owe and starts being money that works for you. At 40, 7 years into investing that same amount, the account sits at roughly $29,000. You've personally put in about $22,000 of that. It doesn't look dramatic yet, but the habit has quietly become infrastructure. At 47, 17 years in, the balance crosses $112,000, assuming an 8% average historical return in the stock market. And that's a historical average, not a guarantee, since markets can and do have years where returns are negative. At 49, 19 years into the habit, the total is around $138,000. You've contributed about $59,000 of your own money across those years. The rest, close to $80,000, came from the market doing what markets have historically done over long stretches of time. At 62, 32 years after that first decision at 30, the balance lands around $461,000. You personally deposited about $100,000 of your own money across 3 decades. The other $361,000 never came out of your paycheck. It came from time, and only from time. You might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but nobody actually sticks to one plan for 32 years without messing it up. And honestly, that's a fair point. Most people don't follow a plan perfectly. Markets shift, life happens, emergencies show up and pull money away for a while. But the point here isn't perfection, it's direction. Someone who starts this habit at 30, even if they pause it a few times along the way, still ends up decades ahead of someone who never made the switch from paying down debt to paying into their own future. And it's worth being honest about something else. There are people who've wiped out debt like this in a matter of months, selling a car, moving back in with family, slashing their budget to the bone. That happens, but it's the exception, not the typical path. Most people who get out of debt do it the slower, steadier way, closer to the example we just walked through. Now let's put both versions of you side by side, at the exact same age. At 52, the version of you who never accelerated the payoff is, at that very moment, just finishing paying off the same $6,600 card. 22 years later, still handing over interest on a problem that started small and was never urgent enough to fix. At 52 on the other timeline, you've been debt-free for 19 years. Your investment account, built from that same $260 a month, holds well over $200,000, and it's still compounding. Same person. Same starting point at age 30. The only thing that changed was when they stopped pushing the problem further down the road. Before we keep going, if this kind of math is making you look at your own statement a little differently right now, that might be a good moment to subscribe, because this exact logic shows up in almost every financial decision you'll ever make, and we break it down here regularly. Fake freedom is buying what you want today. Real freedom is never having to think about a bill again. It's also worth saying that credit card debt rarely travels alone. People in the 25 to 34 age range carry, on average, more than $33,000 in federal student loan debt on top of whatever's sitting on their cards. And that same age group also has the highest credit card delinquency rate in the country right now. When debt piles up from multiple directions at once, it tightens faster than it looks like it should from the outside. You might also be thinking, what if I don't have $260 a month to spare? That's a completely reasonable concern, and the exact number isn't really the point. Even $50 or $100 a month, aimed consistently at the highest interest debt first, shortens the payoff timeline dramatically compared to minimum payments alone. The amount changes from person to person. The principle behind it doesn't. There's also a psychological piece nobody talks about enough. Debt has a way of making you feel like a passenger in your own financial life. Payments happen, interest happens, decisions get made for you by whatever the minimum due says this month. The day that debt hits zero isn't just a financial milestone. It's the day you go from reacting to your money to actually directing it. So here's the recap. Paying only the minimum on a credit card balance can take more than 2 decades and cost you double the original amount. Speeding up that same payment using the exact same money you're already spending can erase that debt in just a few years instead. And the real wealth jump doesn't happen the moment your debt hits zero. It happens the moment you keep that same habit alive and simply point it somewhere new. Where are you right now? Closer to the first version of this story or the second? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever paid off a big debt completely, what did that day actually feel like?